Yeah, hello, good evening, one and all.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, all. Welcome back to the last session of the 3-day workshop on convolutional neural networks for transfer learning.
Madam, regarding to, for TensorFlow, we need to first of all install that
Sir,
Tensor.
your voice is low.
Madam, regarding to use the TensorFlow package,
Yes.
first of all we need to install the TensorFlow, madam, or
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You need to. You need to.
okay.
So whenever you run this code on your system, you need to install all the packages and all.
Madam, that
Huh. Tell me.
MNS data for handwriting.
Huh.
Okay, we had images 8 cross 28.
Yes, 28 plus 28.
28 cross 28, and by that reshape code what you had given, convert it into 28 cross 28 cross 1.
Okay.
Okay, and suppose we have an image of size 28 cross 28 cross 3. That is in Cypher. In data set we have that 28 cross 28 cross 3.
Yeah, CIFAR 10, right?
Okay.
Yes.
So how do we convert it to 28 cross 28 cross 3? How do we convert to a single channel, that is 28 cross 28 cross 1?
You just convert that to gray. So first
Okay.
convert that to gray color, and then you will get only one channel.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, fine. So now shall we start the session?
Yeah.
So I think we can start. It's already 6:10. So let me start with today's session. So today's session will be discussing mostly on fine-tuning of the pre-trained deep convolutional neural networks, especially how to fine-tune VGG16 for our own task. So like basically we'll be using for a specific image classification task. So how to adapt that for our image classification task, we'll see that in today's class. If we get some time, then we'll see how to extract features from, how to use VGG16 model to extract the features. So basically the deep features. Yeah, so let's see how it goes today. So the agenda of today's topics are like, we'll start with understanding what transfer learning strategies are. So of course, briefly we discussed few of the strategies. So now we'll completely discuss what are the different strategies that are possible when you apply transfer learning. So especially we'll be focusing on how to use VGG for fine tuning on our own data set. So like yesterday we have seen that leaf classification, right? So for that data set, so can we use a pre-trained deep CNN? So that's what we'll be discussing today. And then how to extract features from deep CNNs. So maybe I just slightly explain how to do this task because it's quite involved. So let's see how it goes. So during the practice session, so we'll have a brief review of whatever we discussed in day 1 and day 2. So then we'll be discussing on how to fine tune VGG16 for our own task. So then for feature extraction also, how can we use VGG16? So that's what the agenda of today's task, today's session is. So in the last class, we have seen what transfer learning is and what are the different strategies of transfer learning and how to use a pre-trained model for classifying the random images. So like yesterday, whatever we discussed is like VGG16 for classification task. So if you consider that notebook, so we haven't trained any model. So we just loaded the pre-trained model and then we used to classify some random images which are downloaded from Google, right? So that's what we discussed in the first half of the hands-on session. So in today's class, so we'll be seeing what are the problems, what are the limitations of that, and then how can we overcome those limitations. So that's the target for today's session. So let's review what transfer learning is. Transfer learning is basically, it is basically designed for the deep learning models. So one model is designed to solve for a particular problem. So assume we have a model which is basically designed to solve one particular problem. Then, so while solving another problem, so assume that, so the second row indicates, so this is the second problem. So we are going for the second task. And already for task 1, we designed one model, and that using that model, we evaluated the predictions for the first task. So that is done anyhow. But so we are going to design task 2, so which is kind of similar to the previous task. Now in that case, so can we make use of the knowledge that is gained by the first model? So as an answer to that question, so transfer learning was introduced, where you are transferring the learned knowledge from one particular deep neural network to the other models. So that's what basically transfer learning is. So of course, there are many advantages. So by this time, you must have understood what are the advantages of transfer learning and all. And let's see how you can use pre-trained models for transfer learning. So pre-trained models means which are already trained and available for your usage. So like yesterday, we have seen different deep convolutional neural networks, right? So like VGG or ResNet, GoogleNet, these are all the different models that are already trained and gave very good performance on the ImageNet dataset. So ImageNet is such a large dataset. So when a model is performing that well on such a large dataset, so you can expect that dataset to do well on the other tasks also. So now, so you can call such models which are already trained and which are already available for the usage of the programmers. So those models are called as pre-trained models. And these pre-trained models can be basically utilized in 3 different ways. So the first one we already discussed yesterday. So pre-trained model can be used as a classifier. And the second one is, so how to fine tune the pre-trained model for our data set. So of course, fine tuning you can basically think of it as. So fine tuning means, so model is available. So instead of using the model as it is, so you can train your own data set on the pre-trained model. So that's what basically fine tuning is. So I'll explain why do we need to go for fine tuning and all. And then instead of making use of the existing data sets for existing pre-trained model for classification, so maybe you can make use of that as a feature extractor also. So the third strategy of transfer learning is, so pre-trained model can be used as a feature extractor. So when we discuss deep learning, the major feature of deep learning is deep neural network is like at various levels of the deep neural network, it tries to learn or it represents various features of the images. So that is how it is a good feature extractor. So deep neural networks are very good at learning the features from the input data. And can we utilize that kind of features from the pre-trained models? So that's what the third strategy is. So let's see. So how to make use of the pre-trained models in all these 3 strategies. So the first strategy already we discussed, the pre-trained model as a classifier. So you can think of this network as a VGG16 model, and the model is already trained. So just you need to use single line to in the API. You just need to use a single line of code to load your VGG16 model, and then when your images are passed to that model, so you will be getting the output. So that's what we discussed in the last class, right? On the also the hands-on session. So we have done. So it was very clear. So that's what we have seen. So how to use the pre-trained model for classification of the random images. So it was very clear. So now, if you look at the plant image data set, so if we pass that plant images, what are the classes of the plant image data set? So it's healthy and non-healthy, right? So the output of the model should be, when we evaluate the model performance, so I expect that when I pass a healthy leaf, then the output should be of its healthy leaf, maybe class 1, right? And when I pass a affected diseased leaf, then the model should predict it as unhealthy leaf. That means class 0, something like that I should expect, right? But when I pass those kind of images, so like leaf images, diseased leaf images also, what this model gives as output is, so you can try and check. So at max, it will predict it as a leaf or otherwise some plant, right? but that kind of predictions I don't need. According to my task, I want to know whether the given leaf is a like affected leaf or non-affected leaf. So in that case, you cannot use this pre-trained model as a classifier strategy. So that is the limitation of this strategy. So that is why we are going for the second strategy called as fine-tuning of the pre-trained model. How to use pre-trained model for fine-tuning? That means you will be using your own data set for training the model, but the original model architecture either fully or partially you will be utilizing that. So that is what fine-tuning is. So of course, it is also a kind of transfer learning strategy. So in this strategy, what happens is, so the already available network you are taking, and either partially or fully you can take the existing pre-trained model, and if you have any similar task, so then you can, if you have your own data set, then your data set can be trained on the pre-trained model. So that's what basically fine-tuning is. So based on the literature, so you can understand that. So this is the figure which explains the loss values, different loss values for the transfer model, that is the fine-tuned model, versus the model that was designed from scratch. So you can observe here, the blue line here indicates the model, the loss that is obtained by the transfer by the model that is created using the fine-tuning. So that's the blue line, and whereas orange line is the one. So this is the orange line. So this is the one for the validation loss. And similarly, you can see, so register, train and reg validation means here these are the models. So these two lines indicate the models that are trained from the scratch. So if you observe now, so when I train a model using the transfer learning, or when I apply the fine-tuning approach, in that case, so if you observe, the loss is so like going down, down, down and all. So it's always going down only. But if you observe the other models, so whereas if you create any model from the scratch, then up to a certain point it started going down. So that too very slowly the loss is going down. Whereas if you compare the transfer learning or the fine-tuning case, so it's going down very quickly, right? So the loss is going down very quickly. So within 10 epochs itself, so I reach the minimum. But whereas in the case of this, so the loss is going down very slowly. So that's the difference between using the fine-tuning approach and using training the model from the scratch. So I hope it is clear. And now, what are the various strategies in fine-tuning? Also, again, we have different strategies. So in fine-tuning, there are 3 different strategies. So basically, fine-tuning means you have the VGG16 data set, and you will be using that data, the data architecture. So like the model architecture as it is, and then you will be using your own data to train the model. So that's what basically fine-tuning is. And while applying the fine-tuning, you can go for 3 different strategies. So the first strategy here indicates, so here you can see, so the clear lines, the hollow boxes indicate they are frozen. So maybe over a point of time now, you'll be able to understand what this terminology is. So, but try to listen, try to catch as far as possible. So here the blue fill thing, it indicates that, so these are the layers. So you can think of this as a VGG16 model, and this bigger rectangular box that indicates the convolutional layers or the convolution blocks of your VGG16, whereas the smaller box that indicates the final layers of your VGG16. Okay, so there are 2 different portions in every model, right? So the bigger one indicates the convolutional blocks. So we have a large number of convolution blocks, right? So that's why I'm showing that with a bigger rectangular box. So now this smaller rectangular box indicate the fully connected layers. Now there are 3 strategies. So how they vary is, so you are just training every layer of your VGG16. So it's similar to, instead of creating your own model, so the same architecture that is available with VGG16, you are taking and you are using your own data and you are training. So that's what the first strategy indicates. Please try to understand. So this is very, very Important to understand. So if you understand this, then the hands-on will be easy for you. So in the first strategy, so all the layers, so there are some 16 layers, right? So in case of the VGG 16, so all the 16 layers, so you are allowing them to train. And then you are passing your input data and your model will be trained, and finally you will be getting your predictions. So that is how you are using VGG 16 for fine tuning or for your specific task. And then the second strategy, what you are doing is, so half of your convolution blocks are frozen. That means you will not allow them to train. That means whatever the weights that are available or that are already obtained by the VGG 16 model when it was trained on the ImageNet dataset, the same weights you will be using. So that's what the meaning of this hollow space. The colored space indicates that, so you are allowing these convolution blocks to be trained. And again, of course, the fully connected layers, anyhow, I am allowing them to train. So that is what the second strategy is. Means you are allowing some of the layers of the convolution block to be frozen and the rest of the blocks to be trained. And of course, the fully connected layers, you are allowing them to train. And the third strategy is, so you are not allowing any of the convolutional blocks to be trained. So it's completely frozen. So the weights of the convolution blocks, whatever you are using for your task, are the same as those that are obtained by the VGG 16 model while it was trained for the ImageNet dataset. So that's what the third strategy is. And of course, fully connected layers, you are allowing them to train. That means fine tuning is happening at this place. So that is what fine tuning is, and these are the strategies for fine tuning. Yeah, now when to use which strategy? So that also it should be clear, right? So simply knowing the strategies, it doesn't make any sense. So now let's see when to use which kind of strategy. So I have 3 or 4 kinds of, so here what I did is, so like I have used half of the convolution blocks as frozen and rest of the convolution blocks as trained. So I can change like the amount of frozen layers and the amount of like trained layers, it can be varied. So depending on that, so I just segregate the way I fine tune the model into 4 partitions. So you can consider on the x-axis the dataset similarity. So that means as you go on towards the right on the x-axis, so the VGG 16 dataset similarity, that means the ImageNet data and your data are most similar. So as you go towards the right on the x-axis, that indicates your data is almost similar to your ImageNet dataset. And when you are in the left side of your data similarity on the x-axis, that indicates the data similarity is very low. Data similarity means, so you have one data set and your task is something like leaf disease prediction. And is there any similarity between your leaf disease prediction data set and the ImageNet data set? ImageNet data set is basically, you know, the objects, so like cat, dog, elephant, something like that. So there is no similarity, right? So in that case, I should consider I am kind of at this end. So that is how you can think of it. So that's on the x-axis. And whereas on the y-axis, what is the dataset size? So if your dataset size is very small, then you are on the lower end. So if your dataset size is very big, then you are on the top end. And considering all these alternatives, so I have divided it into 4 spaces. So here, if you consider, so when we are here, if we are here means my dataset similarity is very low. So I repeat, dataset similarity indicates your dataset and the ImageNet dataset. They are not the same. That's what the meaning of it. So the dataset similarity is very low because I am on the lower side or the left side of my x-axis. And because on the top of the y-axis, that indicates I have enough data to train the model. So in that case, what I can do, so I can train the entire model. Because the data set is not similar to the ImageNet data set. VGG 16 is actually designed for the ImageNet data collection, but my data set is completely different. So it should be like the kind of leaf disease prediction and all. So in that case, you are in this portion. And consider the other case where your data set similarity is very high and your data set size is also very high. So when these two are true, then you are in this coordinate. Then what you should do in that case, you had to train some of the layers and leave others to be frozen. So that is how you need to consider. So here if you observe, no, so most of the layers, so I made it as frozen and few of the layers I am training because I have so like lot of data and I have the data set is very similar. So there is no point in retraining it because the data set is similar. So though I have large amounts of data, so it's waste of time training the whole data set, the like whole model. So that is why I'm freezing most of the layers of the VGG16 model and then so the final layers only I'm considering for training. So that's what the second coordinate indicates. So coming to the third coordinate, it indicates that so your data set similarity is very low and your data set size is also very small. So in that case, so because the data set similarity is very low, so there is no other option other than training your model on your data set, right? Though I have very limited data, so I had to train it. Otherwise, I'll get wrong predictions. So that is where you need to select this kind of model. And if you consider the last coordinate, the last option, so it indicates that when your data set size is very small and your data set similarity is very high. So data set similarity is very high means so you need not to train it too much, right? And also I don't have much data also to train this large model. So that's how I freeze the entire convolutional base and I train only the top layers, the fully connected layers of the VGG16 model. So that is how you can consider different strategies. And so we'll see how to make use of this. So this I already explained. No? So then what are the steps you need to follow when you are going for fine tuning? So I hope all of you understand what fine tuning is. So you have the VGG16 architecture, right? So that's 16 layers, the first input layer followed by the convolution block, then max pooling, again followed by 3 convolution blocks, followed by the max pooling, so on and so forth. So likewise, you have 16 different layers in your VGG16 model. So you are taking the entire model and you are going to train that model on your data set. Okay, so if you take the original VGG16, so it will work only for the object categorization, that too of the 1000 classes. But I don't want that. So in my class, whatever we have seen yesterday, there's a plant leaf disease prediction. In that case, I have only 2 classes. So there is no point of having 1000 different classes, right? So that is how, so I had to fine tune the VGG16 model according to my data set. So how do I do that? So for that, what you can do is, so the simple strategy we'll be discussing. So the strategy we'll be following is, you just remove the fully connected layers from the VGG16 model. So what is the final layer of your VGG16? How many neurons are there at the final layer of your VGG16? Is 1000, because the number of classes of the ImageNet is 1000 and VGG16 is basically designed for the ImageNet data set. So you just remove that layer and then, so you can, if you want, you can add your own layers. So few more dense layers if you really want. If you have more data, then you can add few more dense layers. And otherwise, so add one more one softmax layer with the number of neurons at that layer is equal to the number of classes in your own data set. So that is how you can replace the fully connected nodes with the fresh layers. So already, so the existing the fully connected layer, so we'll be removing that and we are replacing that with the new fully connected layer. So that's what we are doing here. And then, so when you have very small amounts of data and when you have like limited computational resources, then that VGG16 model, so it takes number of days for you to train the network, right? So in that case, it's not possible for us to train the network due to different constraints. So when your data set is very low, then your model starts overfitting. When your computational resources are very limited, then it's not possible to train your model. Even if it is possible also, it will take number of months. So in that case, what we can do is, so we can simply freeze all the convolutional layers of the network and so allow the fully connected layers alone to train. So then you can pass your data to the model and so your model will start training, and because your convolutional layers are freezed, so your fully connected layers alone will be allowed for backpropagation. That means the weights in that layers will be learning, so like that training basically. And finally, you will be getting proper outputs after applying the training on your own data set. So this is the strategy we'll be following in the fine tuning case. And now let's see. Yeah, maybe you can see. You can look at this picture. So how the training from the scratch model is different from your transfer learning. Say for example, so if you have one large model, so assume that I have a large model or the VGG16 itself. So assume this is the VGG16 model. So in that case, I am passing an image, basically a car image. So how the ImageNet dataset produces the outputs? So one of the 1,000, right? The 1,000 labels and 1,000 outputs are there, and whichever output the prediction is maximum value, and that label will be returned by the model. So that's how it happens. Even if it is not VGG16 also, so it works in the same manner. So that is how you have to train your model, and you can get the predictions. Now, so how what happens when I apply the transfer learning? So now I am giving the input data, and so you are taking the pre-trained CNN like VGG16 or ResNet or any model you can take. So and then so you are removing the fully connected layers or the final layer of your VGG16 and attach one more layer, that is a softmax layer. So with only two. Here it was kind of 1,000 neurons. So when VGG16 was used, but now I have only 2 neurons because my task is classification of so car or truck. Whereas ImageNet dataset, it was designed like the VGG16 model was designed to be predicting one of the 1,000 classes. So that is how you can make use of your pre-trained model for your own task, right? Yeah, now let's see, let's proceed to the hands-on session. So far, if you have any doubts, maybe I can take doubts. Hello?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, you told that you're going to predict whether it can be car or it can be a truck, right? Can it be
Here, in
more
this
than
case,
two
yes.
labels also over there?
Yes, yes, you can have. So whatever. Like in this case, my own task is having only 2 labels. In that case, I can have only two neurons, or otherwise sigmoid neuron also I can use, right?
Okay.
Like how to adapt the pre-trained model to your own task.
Okay.
So if you
So,
have 10 labels, no, then you can have 10 neurons at the final layer. That's all.
okay, okay. Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Mhm. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, now shall I proceed to the hands-on then?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So I'll just take a minute and share the new screen. Yeah, now can you see my screen? So the Collab notebook.
Yes, ma'am.
So now, so basically this is what we discussed in the previous class itself, but I'll just give you the intuition. So why we should not use the model as it is and why we should go for the fine tuning. Okay. So yesterday what we have seen is, so how to use the VGG16 model for the random image prediction. That's what we have seen, right? So just let me run the code. So I'm not explaining the code because I think all of you are familiar with this code now. So now if you observe, instead of giving, it's taking time. So now the model is downloading, the VGG model. So as it is, we are taking the VGG16 model. So whatever is there, so the same model we are taking. So if you have any doubt now, you can check the model summary. So you can see the convolution blocks, then the max pooling convolution, so then flatten, then the dense layers. So,
Ma'am,
yeah.
ma'am, here we use the batch size, no? What is batch size?
Batch size is how many images you are passing to the model at the same time. That means like your model is learning means the weights are updated, right? Weight updation happens when your model is trained.
Yeah.
And there are different varieties of learning. So like I explained in the last class, maybe I think first day session. So the batch learning and online learning are two possible learning techniques. So in case of the batch learning, what happens is, so you have to pass your entire data to your model, and then whatever the error you are getting on the entire data, and that you have to back propagate, and the model outputs will be, the weights will be updated accordingly. So that's what batch learning is. So here what we are using is mini batch, not the batch learning, but in there is another learning called as online learning. In case of the online learning, you will be passing each and every example, and after passing every example, you will be getting the error, right? So there is a possibility of getting an error when you feed an example to your network. Then, so after looking at the error, you are back propagating the error and you are updating the weights using the gradient descent or whatever the algorithm you are using. So because you are updating your weights after every example is shown to the network, that is called as online learning. So online learning is good in one sense and bad in other sense. So like you will be reaching your local minima or the global minima itself. But the problem is it will take long time, computationally expensive, because after every example you need to update the weights. If you observe, 138 million parameters are there. So all these 138 million parameters, after every example, I need to update. Right. So that is the problem. So that's why, so instead of using the batch learning and instead of using online learning, there is in between one more learning called as mini batch training. So in mini batch training, what happens is, so you need to pass, say for example, if your mini batch size is 32, then you show 32 examples to the model. Then after showing 32 examples, you will be getting the error for every sample of these 32 batch of the examples. And then you collect that error and back propagate that error and update your weights accordingly. Is that fine? So that's what the mini batch is. Now, yeah, now the drive is mounting. Once it is done.
Madam, this is yesterday program explanation or now the updated one, madam?
The same one, I'll just give you the intuition. Why do we need to go for fine tuning? I'm not explaining this program.
Okay.
I'm just waiting to run the code, that's all. very slow. Anyhow, I'll explain you that. So what the problem will be. So assume that I'm passing a leaf image here. So in the path, I'll be passing a leaf image. Actually, my task is prediction of whether the leaf is diseased or not, right? And when I use the same code, so whatever we used yesterday, and can you guess what would be the output by the model? What kind of output the model is giving? So if it is an elephant, then it is showing it's an elephant, right?
Leaf.
And similarly, it will show it as a leaf only.
Leaf.
But it will not tell us whether it is a diseased leaf or non-diseased leaf, right? So you cannot use this kind of code. That is, so the pre-trained model, so which is designed for the random image classification, you cannot use it for your own task. So that is the problem with this. So that is the reason why we need to go for fine tuning. Yeah. So now let's see how to fine tune the VGG16 model for your own task. Okay, I'm basically considering the same data set. So whatever we have used yesterday, so that it will be very easy for you to understand. So consider this pepper leaf disease prediction only, and now and then so let's start mounting the drive. It's taking time. Maybe you can also start this. Yeah. So now all this code you are familiar with, right? So you just need to give the path of the directory and then extract all the features and all the labels. So that's what we are doing basically in this part of the code. So this we have seen already. And then how to visualize few of the examples. So this also we have seen in the earlier class itself. Then you need to basically split your data into train and test splits, because your variable X is having all the features and Y is having all the labels. Then you just split it as per your requirement. So in this case, I have taken test size as 20%. And the remaining 80% will be considered as train data set. So now the test and train and test splitting is also done. So now everything is ready. Now I can feed this data set to some model. Now I want to create a model based on the VGG16 model itself. So I'll not create my own model. What I do is I take the VGG16 architecture and maybe I kind of fine tune the model. So let's see how to do that. Yeah, see, so this is the VGG16 architecture if you observe. So the same architecture, so without putting any effort, so just by using a single command, so you can get that model, and so you can alter that model also. So let's see how to do that. Still working. Yeah. So now you just, so this is what is important, right, for importing your VGG16 model to your program. So just import your VGG16 from keras.application.vgg16. And because you are going to create your own model, just import all the required layers. Like you need to have a sequential class because you are going to create your sequential model. Then you want to create some more dense layers also at the end. So that's why I'm just importing these layers also. So once the importing of the layers and all the required packages is done, so how to import your VGG16 model? So here I'm calling this VGG16 class. So by passing these parameters. So here weights indicates, so whatever the VGG16 model is having the weights when it was trained with the ImageNet dataset, so those weights have to be downloaded. That's what the meaning of it. So you are going to basically download the VGG16 model. So model is always nothing but the weights. So I'm going to use those weights, and so that means I'll be using the same model. So for that, I just passed the weights as ImageNet weights itself. So the same weights which were obtained while training the ImageNet dataset for the VGG16 model. So those weights I'm going to download. And then in addition, you need to pass one parameter called as include top. So include top, either it could be true or it could be false also. So if it is false, what happens? What happens is it will remove all the dense connected layers. So I hope you are familiar with this VGG16 model. So if you observe now, this is the first layer, the input layer, then the convolution, again convolution, then pooling, convolution, again 2 convolutions, pooling, 3 convolution, pooling, again 3 convolutions, pooling, 3 convolutions, pooling, then the flattened, dense, right? So this part of your model will be removed when I pass this include top equal to false. Does it make sense? So that means the top layer or the fully connected part of your model will be removed, and then the rest of the model will be copied to you. Okay, and then what is the input shape? So the input shape for the VGG16 should be 224, 224, 3. So the input shape you can retain the same. So you just pass that variable also. Now to the VGG16 class, you are passing basically the weights, then the include top, either it is false or true, and then input shape equal to, so whatever the input shape is required by VGG16. So now, so you are just creating an object of this VGG16 class. And what is this VGG16 basically? It's a model, a deep neural network model, right? Deep convolutional neural network model. And that model will be assigned to the variable convolution base. So like in the previous classes, we have used the variable name as model. And because we are going to get only the convolution blocks, so I just named it as convolution base. So whatever the name you want for your model, no? So you can use that name. So now once the model is loaded, I want to see what is the architecture of the model, the configuration of the model. So for that, I am calling the summary method. With this object, I am calling the summary method. So then, so you can see your architecture. So basically your VGG16 is having certain set of convolution layers followed by a few dense layers, right? So here we said we don't want the dense layers. So that's what the meaning of this argument, include top equal to false. That means I want only the convolutional layers from the VGG16 model, and that model I'm copying to the variable convolution base, and I'm just now visualizing the model architecture. Now you can see how the model is. So your input layer is there, then the convolution layers, 2 convolution layers, then max pooling followed by 2 convolutions, then max pooling, then 3 convolutions, then the max pooling, then 3 convolutions followed by max pooling, again 3 convolutions followed by max pooling. So what about your dense layers? So if you observe now, this is the actual original complete VGG16 model. Now that part is missing. The only reason is, so you just wanted it to be false. You don't want that part of your model because you are going to fine tune that. So if you observe the final layer, so where is the final layer? This one is the final layer. So what is the final layer number of neurons? The final layer size? It is 1000. Why is it 1000? Because the number of classes of the ImageNet is 1000. And this model is basically created for that data set. But in our model, so in our task, so we are going to predict whether the given leaf is diseased or healthy. So now how many classes are there in my task? Only 2 classes, right? So then my final layer, how do I design my final layer? There are 2 options. Either use a sigmoid layer with single neuron or use a softmax layer with 2 neurons. So anything is fine. So I can use that option. So that's why I just removed all the fully connected layers. So now your model architecture looks like this. All the convolution blocks are retained, all the max pooling layers are retained along with your input layer. So now you don't have your what you call the fully connected layers. So if you observe the model parameters also. So how many model parameters are here? 14 million parameters. Whereas for this model, if you have the fully connected layers also, then the model is 138 million parameters, even more than that if you observe. So that's drastic difference, right?
Madam?
Yes. Tell me, sir.
Just scroll, madam, that scroll up, madam. Just see, screen is going to be up.
What? Now?
Madam, that BGG structure, whatever you explained, that at last 1000 coming, that 1000 coming,
Yes, this is the
it is
1000.
1000 coming, but in after fine tune, it will what, madam?
No, we are going to add our own layer here.
Okay.
So just with max pooling, it's not useful at all, right? So till the convolution blocks, your model will not predict anything, basically. It just learns how to represent the data of your data from your input. That's all. So you will only get the data representations, but you cannot use that for classification. So that is the problem here. So that is why you need to add 1 or 2 layers, dense layers you need to add, then only it can be used for the model prediction. So let's see how to add that. So now the whole architecture of the VGG16 I'm using. So right from the input layer to all the convolution blocks till the last convolution block followed by the max pooling. So everything is available with me. Now to this model, I'll be adding few more dense layers. So let's see how to add that. So for that, what I'm doing is I'm creating one more model. So the model name is model, and it's a sequential structure. That's why I'm creating an object of the sequential class. Now, so to this model, I'll be adding the convolution base. Simply convolution base. What is convolution base? All these layers. All these layers are the convolution base. So that's how, that is the variable we just created, right? It's just a variable, that's all. So you just pass that variable. In that case, what happens is your model will be having all those convolution layers. Now, what is the output of this final layer of your model, the convolution base? It is of 7 by 7 by 512. Now, it cannot be directly applied with the dense layers unless we have a flattened layer. So if you observe your VGG16 also, so this is the final layer, then there should be a flattened layer, and then only you can apply your fully connected layers. As many as you need, you can add them. So for that, what we are doing is we are going to add one flattened layer. Now the flattened layer is added. See, observe. So now the flattened layer, simply called flatten. That's all. It's very simple. Once you understand, no, so it's very easy. So first, I just created the sequential model object, then added the convolution base. So whatever I obtained from the VGG16 class after removing the final fully connected layers, then I just added a flattened layer. That means you are basically converting your volume data into vectors. That's all. So vectorization is done after the flattening. So then you can add few of the dense layers, either 1 or 2. It's up to you. Depending on your data set size, you can decide. So now what I did is I just added one dense layer with the ReLU activation function, and then added one more dense layer with the sigmoid activation function. So why am I using only one neuron at the output layer with the sigmoid activation function? So what is my task here? My task in hand is the leaf disease prediction. So in the leaf disease prediction, there are only 2 classes. For the time being, I have taken only 2 classes. So if there are 2 classes, so your output layer in your neural network can have one neuron with the activation function as sigmoid. So that is how I added this as the final layer. So where I get the final outputs from my model. Okay. So now the model is ready. Now, so better don't run this model, because if you observe now, this model is also having 14 million parameters. 14 million parameters means, and you added few more. So 1 to 56 layer, that means 14 million into this one. So like final this 25,000 into this one. So it will be kind of, some 70-80 million parameters would be there. Now you just check what is already it is there. Now let me run this. I just want to show you what is your model now after adding the convolution base and the fully connected. What happened? Summary. I didn't run this code, I think. Yeah. So now if you observe, no, so your model is having, so the first layer is your VGG16, the whole VGG16 model, and the output shape is 7 by 7 by 512, and the number of parameters are 14 million parameters, close to 15 million parameters. Then you added a flattened layer. This flattened layer again introduced, okay, so this doesn't require any parameters. Then one dense layer of 256 neurons and another dense layer of 1 neuron. So that is what you created basically, right? So don't think that this indicates only one single layer. So because when you observe this, no, it's VGG16. That means, so it's except the final layer or the top dense layers. So we have included all the convolution layers from VGG16. So that's how the model is created now. So now how many parameters are there in your model? You can see that. Here you can see the total number of parameters are 21 million parameters. And how many trainable parameters are there? Of course, all the, we never said that this parameter is freezed, right? That means all the parameters are to be trained. That is why there are 0 non-trainable parameters. And 21 million parameters, that too we have only 500 images with us. And if I keep some 20%, that is 100 images for testing, I'll be having only 400 images for training. So 400 images for training and 21 million parameter prediction. So it would be very difficult, right? Overfitting would be the problem. So that is how you better freeze the neural network and better freeze all the convolution blocks. And I'll now show you how to freeze the layers. So the convolution base is the model, which is the variable which is having all the convolution layers, right? Now let's see how to freeze the layers. Yeah, here you just iterate a loop over the convolution base dot layers. So convolution base is your convolution like VGG16 model, and in that you take all the layers, and for every layer you just iterate over the loop, the for loop, and then in every iteration you just make the current layer as trainable as false. That means you are making your block or the layer, the particular layer as non-trainable. So that is how you can freeze your specific layers of your network. So now, so let me run this code. You can understand. So now let's, after freezing this layer, so we will see the summary of the model and see so what is the difference between the earlier model and this model. So this model is clear, right? And I have a question. Let me check. We have 2 classes in leaf task, but we have only one parameter is dense 4. What? I didn't get the question. We have only one parameter in dense 4. Yeah, 2 classes. Gopal, I got your question. So there are 2 ways when you have binary classification task. Okay, one option is, so in the final layer you can have only one neuron. I think here I have, yeah. So the final layer you just have one neuron and use the activation function as sigmoid activation function. So this is the better option whenever you have a binary classification task. Otherwise there is other option also. So use 2 neurons and the activation function must be softmax. But that is a bad option because it increases the number of parameters unnecessarily. So that's the only problem. Otherwise you can use any of these options. Why? Okay, fine. Yeah, you got it right. Good. So now, so we just frozen the convolutional layers of our model. So now let's have a look at this model.summary, how the model is. Now can you observe the parameters? So of course the first layer is your VGG16 model. Whatever VGG16 we have taken all the convolution layers, so that is there. And then the flattened layer, of course, then the dense layer, 256 neurons, dense layer with single neuron. So that's what we have. Okay. And then if you observe, there is no difference in the architecture. What we did, so we didn't change the architecture of the model. So we just changed, so we just made the layers as frozen so that they will not be trained while fine tuning. Right? That means your back propagation algorithm, your error will not be back propagated to those layers, and your weights, those particular layer weights will not be updated. So that's what the freezing of the layers is, and this is how you can do. So this code will do that. And now if you observe this, the difference between the earlier, so if you observe, the total number of parameters are 21 million, the trainable parameters, all our trainable parameters. When it was, so it was before you froze, you did the freezing of layers, and the non-trainable parameters are 0. That's how it was. But now after freezing the layers, now let's see what are the number of parameters. The total number of parameters will not change anyhow because the model architecture is not changed. But the trainable parameters are now only 6 million, and whereas non-trainable parameters are 14 million. So if you observe now, so whatever the parameters that I got from VGG 16, all those parameters became frozen and they are now non-trainable. So you're not training them basically. So your trainable parameters came down drastically, right? So now with limited data set also, so you can, your model is expected to perform reasonably well. So that is how you can do it. So now the model is ready. Now let's apply. So call the compile method. So by passing your loss function and by informing the optimizer and of course the metrics also. So once the model is compiled, you just call the compile method of the model and then you just call the fitting. So to fit, the model has to be fitted on the train data, right? So pass the train, X train, Y train, backslash epochs, all those things, and then just execute that. So you can see, I just gave it for 10 epochs. So you can observe after freezing all the layers itself, it's taking this much of amount of time. So if I have not frozen, that's why I have frozen and then started execution. Otherwise, it will take more time. See, here validation loss is increasing basically. But slowly over the epochs, it's reducing and your validation accuracy is increasing and your training accuracy is also improving. Yeah, now the model is trained. So you can evaluate that on the test data. So now I'm just applying it on the test data. So it's 95%. Right? So you didn't design any CNN model. So in the previous class, whatever we created, so let me show that. That was it. Yeah. So earlier, basically, we designed one CNN, right? So we were kind of struggling. So how to create the model, how many convolution blocks should be there, how many neurons should be there, and what should be the kernel size. All those things matters. So then we just added 3 convolution blocks with max pooling. So then we kind of included the batch normalization and then dropout. Of course, we strategically did. So to arrive that point itself, we had a lot of struggle, right? So that was a problem. But here, no, so you need not to do anything. You didn't do anything except that you have the VGG architecture except adding 2 dense layers. That's all, right? So you need not to think much about the model. So just take the VGG model, so freeze all the layers and then add 2 dense layers to your model and your accuracy is 95%. Is it not easy compared to the earlier one? So creating your own convolutional neural network is difficult. No, it's like architecture you need to design. But here that design choice is not required. So simply you need to play with your number of parameters in the dense layers and the number of dense layers. That's all.
Madam, how that in earlier one, how we can save that model, best model after
best
result?
Model on test data. On test data, whichever model is giving the best accuracy, that model you can call it as best model.
Then how here how we can save, madam, in these cases?
So here also the because it's giving 95% accuracy, no, that it's earlier, so like to get 90 to 93 itself, it was a struggle, and I didn't tune it actually. I just tried 2 layers. So maybe you can, I'll leave it as an exercise. So you can try with different number of dense layers and different number of neurons at the dense layer. So then your accuracy could be improved.
Madam, is it applicable for all type of data set or only image data?
Of course, any image or even for other data sets also it is applicable. But the thing is, you need to convert the data to two-dimensional or multi-dimensional data. So you need to arrange the data first of all. So once you have the data in that form, then you can very well use this.
Madam, here if you see,
Yes, ma'am.
when we are training, that accuracy is coming as 1.0. That means 100%.
Yeah, of course.
Then here, when you are calculating here in this course, it's coming as 90%.
No, it is training accuracy, ma'am.
Okay.
It's not testing, right? So while training, you are passing train data alone.
Okay.
That's how it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Now I am sharing you this notebook. So I'll give you 10 minutes of time. So can you try it out?
Madam, that earlier one, VGG 16 also kindly send
sure.
it, madam.
VGG 16 for classification.
Classification means yesterday what I explained, madam.
Oh, I shared it, sir, yesterday itself.
I thought I missed it.
Okay, so no problem. I'm sharing.
Okay, madam. Thank you, madam.
Yeah, one more. Ma'am, it accepts only NumPy arrays as input. Yeah, of course.
Ma'am, how do we load Python files into Google Colab?
So just go to Google Drive and then Python, so just drag and drop do. So here you just
into Colab?
Yeah. Colab?
No, how do we open a Python file in Colab?
So Python also, it can be opened directly, you know. You were unable to open it or what?
Yeah. Not able to open.
Okay.
Maybe we are able to download
only I think it opens only notebooks.
Okay. But here we are able to download as Python file.
Yeah, yes, true.
Yeah. But we are not able to upload.
Yeah. Maybe text editor is there. If you want, you can, but that doesn't allow you to execute. That's the problem.
No, one thing is we can open, copy, paste into one cell. Everything into one cell.
Ma'am, which file is? Yes, ma'am. That's fine. So there is another question. Which file is best_model.h5 that you discussed yesterday? Yeah, I'll show you that. So here I have. So the model, whatever is the best model, that is stored here. So I'm deleting it and then I'll show you again. So I'm removing the file from this folder. Okay. So there is no bestmodel.h5. So whatever I have, so I will now.
Ma'am, can you show the screen? We are not able to see that.
Okay. 1 second. I just wanted to upload the files onto WhatsApp. That's why I just stopped. Give me a minute. Once that is done, I'll share. WhatsApp is fine, right? Now I shared 2 files. Yeah, all of you can check yesterday's VGG 16 for classification and now the fine-tuning VGG 16. So both are now available in your group, WhatsApp group. So now, yeah, I shared the screen.
Ma'am, I've sent the error on WhatsApp when we open Python file, no?
Okay, so you just use Python, ma'am, otherwise. So you can use in your system Python itself,
Oh,
or
yeah.
so you can do one thing. So you
Yeah.
just copy paste your code and open your Colab notebook and copy paste the code
Copy paste.
from
Okay.
your Python. So that would be sufficient. So then what? So yeah, best model. She was asking about the best model, right? Here in this Maumita, so you can check this. So now we are basically this code is available at this location where day 2.
Madam, that best model for to save best model, we need to create a separate folder in our drive, madam.
You need not to create any folder, sir. So straight away it will be created automatically. You just give one of the name. That's all.
Means that file name we need to give, madam. That with
Yes.
but that path
Here you just
that path
what
you
you
have given, madam. That path.
yes, sir. What? Yeah, I'm explaining that. So
Just
in the folder from wherever you just I'll just open the file also so that it will be clear for you. So here if you observe, no.
Yes, ma'am.
So your day 2 in the day 2 folder actually I have the Colab notebooks.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
And here there is a file called bgg16.ipynb. So I'm just going to open that. So I just deleted that best model.h file just now. Yeah, ma'am, Bharati Devi, ma'am, I'll explain that. So now it will be clear for you. I think it's because of the path. So now I'll explain you how to check the path. So now you just go to this folder icon, click on this, and to get that you need to have just mount your folder. It's connecting. Yeah, now it's connected. No, so now you just mount. So once you can see this kind of folders, so then your Google Drive has to be mounted. So then only you can do that. So you can select the path and all. So to get your Google Drive to be mounted, you need to run this code. Yeah, now you can see the drive here. Basically, so the home directory, whenever you are in the Google Colab, it's content. And in content, this drive indicates your Google Drive. So the whole Google Drive. So that's what the meaning of this drive is. So content is your home directory of your Google Colab. So then this drive is your Google Drive. So in that Google Drive, so I go to my drive and here my notebook is available in this folder, CNN for transfer learning in that. So the day 2, then I have Colab notebooks and under that I have, yeah, maybe this path you can choose. So maybe you just click on one of the file. So my program is, where is my, yeah. So this one, BGG16 for classification. So this is my, the current file is. So that you select, so you just right click on that and select copy path. So that will give you your path. Okay. So basically, this is for test images. Let me copy that. Yeah, one of the image I'm taking. So now this is how you need to select the path. So now so the path is proper. So I have selected one image. Then here I don't have that, right? Test model and all. Sure. I think I need to run this. explain this. So you just need to get that path where your IPNB is there, and instead of that IPNB, you give your file name .h5. That's all you need to do. Other than that, nothing else you need to do. And open it. Feature extraction. Now here there is a checkpoint, right? So this path how I am giving. So that's what the question is. So here you just go to the drive. So wherever this notebook is available, go to that path. So basically you can give any path. Just to avoid confusion, I'm using this. So just copy path and just copying below. You can understand so that. So this is what the path I'm using basically. So the same path, right? So back.
That
go to
folder
the-
path, that folder
Yeah.
path, madam. That is.
So this part you just remove. The IPNB path, IPNB file name you just remove, and you just add best underscore model or whatever the file name you want to give. So that in the same folder itself, your best model will be created. Okay, you need not to create any file as such. You just need to pass that. So if you give the path here, later on it will not be a problem. Otherwise, it will be a problem later by loading your best model. So that's why. So you better select this path and then pass this as the file name.
Madam, for again the load purpose, then where we
Load
can.
you need not to do, because for the loading of the file, already you have passed the path name. So the file name itself, it's a static variable, right? It's a variable name. In this variable already containing the whole path. So
Yes,
it's all the same. So to whichever file you are storing, from the same file you are extracting. So
It's
this file name is a variable and you are passing that to the checkpoint while creating the checkpoint, and while loading your model, so you need to load from your that file. So here if you observe, just pass that variable which contains a full path, that's all.
okay, ma'am. Here in the file name we need not to write anything because already file name having that address is there. That
Nothing is required because already file name is having that.
okay,
The
okay.
path is there. So that is how you can do.
Thank you, madam.
That's all. Yeah, now can you try it for 5 minutes at least? Just try to run that code, whatever I have shared today. Yeah, please proceed and try to execute that part.
Ma'am, excuse me, ma'am. Hello.
Hello, sir, just wait for 2 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, hello.
Ma'am,
Yeah. Sir, tell me, sir.
Yeah, ma'am. Due to some problem, just now I have logged into this session.
Oh, it's too late, no? You have missed a lot.
Yeah, that's why. Actually, what you're explaining is the yesterday's program, or this one is a new
No,
program?
no, no, it's new one, no? So it's completely. Anyhow, you'll be getting the recording. That will not be a problem. Everything I'm recording, so I'll be sharing that.
Okay, okay, okay.
Okay.
Ma'am, is there any difference between prediction and a classification, madam?
Actually, prediction is a general sense. So when you are predicting a discrete variable, it's a classification. When you are
Okay.
predicting a continuous value, it's called as regression. That's all.
Okay, okay.
So we can, it's like classification is a specific kind of regression only, right? Regression
Okay.
is in a general sense. So we call it as prediction. In both comes under prediction. The difference between classification and regression are, so in case of classification, the prediction value is a discrete value. So like classes, class 1, class 2, something like that. But in case of regression, so you'll be predicting a continuous value, like temperature, weight, or stock market prediction, so on and so forth.
Ma'am, does recognition also comes into the category of classification, or recognition is something?
Recognition and classification are the same only. Yeah.
Same thing, yeah?
If it is object recognition, then it's all the same.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Please repeat how to give path in file name. Sure. Okay. So you need to mount the drive. Okay. So you just mount the drive, ma'am. So so this is the code for mounting the drive. Where is it? top of the notebook, I have the code. So this is the code for mounting the drive. So once you, I hope you understand how to mount the drive. Once you mount the drive, then click on this. So then you will be getting drive folder. So in the drive folder, you just go to the folder where your notebook is available. So in this, this notebook is available in the drive, in my drive. So under day 2, so under the collab notebooks folder, so in that I have a file. So under test images, I have pepper leaf images. Okay. So that is how, sorry, not under test images, under collab notebooks, I have pepper leaf disease prediction problem. So that is what my file path is. So just traverse to your file and then right click on that copy path. Right click on that, select copy path. So that will copy the current path, like whatever the file you selected. So while selecting, you should select whichever, wherever the current notebook is. Okay, once that is done, so then you just go to your file name, wherever you are going to create your model.h file. So now you just remove this final IPy and V and then write whatever the model name you want. So here I am going to create my model as best underscore model 1. So best underscore model 1.h file. Then just include within quotation and just pass that as file name. That's all, ma'am. So that's how you need to do. Now, if you are done with this, I'll go to the feature extraction part because it's we are getting late. It's 7:25 now. Yeah, fine. Welcome, ma'am. So, anyone of you completed the execution of that code? Yeah, of course. Setting the path and all, it is involved. A little involved. It takes time. So when you try once or twice, if you don't get it, don't give it up because so it's really involved. So deep learning is kind of so somewhat complex subject. So try to practice, then you will be able to understand.
Ma'am, you can continue, ma'am.
Yeah, very good.
This is taking time, yeah.
Yeah, of course, that takes time. I know. Yeah, now I'll proceed to the next one, how to use a pre-trained model for feature extraction. So that's what my next topic is. Maybe I'll just go to the PPT and come back. So, yeah, so far we have seen two different strategies. So pre-trained model as a classifier. So where we could classify the images that are similar to the ImageNet data set. So only for classifying only those set of images, this first strategy could be useful. But whereas your data set is completely diverse from the ImageNet data set. Say for example, our leaf disease prediction, the task is entirely different. But of course, it's an image data set, so reasonably you can use that architecture. So that's how I use the DGG16 architecture, the same model, except the final layer. I changed the layers. I removed the top layers, and what did I do? So I added few more layers, and then I trained the model as it is. And of course, frozen the basic convolutional layers. And if you have like real computationally intensive machines, so then you can remove that freezing of the layers, and then your model might improve if you have large data. Okay, so that's what we discussed so far. And now how can we use pre-trained model for feature extraction. So basically, it can be used for feature extraction also. So what we do is, we already discussed that different layers of the convolutional neural networks. So they are very good at learning different representations from the data. So if I pass an image, so this set of convolution blocks, they learn a set of features, and the set of features, the set of maps, they also learn different features. Similarly, this block also learns different set of features. So when this CNN is learning different sets of features, so can I use this model as a feature extractor? So like GIST or HOG or SIFT. So similar to that, can I use the can I extract the deep features also from one of the pre-trained model? Means yes, you can do that. So how we can do that is, so basically we extract the features from the final fully connected layers. So either from the first fully connected layer or from the second fully connected layer. So you can extract the layers, extract the features by passing your input images, and then you can either create your own deep learning neural network, or you can use your traditional machine learning algorithm like the KNN or SVM or logistic regression or any other model for that matter you can use. So you are using the basic VGG16 architecture. So you are using just the weights. You are passing the input images, your own dataset images. You are passing to the model, and then from the final fully connected layers, you are extracting the features. I'll show you how to extract the features in the hands-on session. And then once you get the features, you can either use the traditional machine learning algorithm or the deep learning neural network. So we have already seen how to use the deep learning neural networks, how to create them, and we know how to create the traditional machine learning algorithms also. So finally, what you get is the image classification output, right? So now let's see how to create your feature extraction, how to use your deep pre-trained model for feature extraction. Yeah. So this is the code for that. So again, so importing the packages and all, it's all the same everywhere. So I'll not be discussing that. So just mount the drive. Yeah, it's already very good. It's already mounted. So then in this case, if you observe, no, so I have included the top layer. So whereas in the previous case, while creating the VGG16 object, so I have passed the weights, the ImageNet weights itself I wanted, but I have selected the include top equal to false because I wanted only the convolutional base. I didn't want the fully connected layers, right? But in this case, for feature extraction, I want the final fully connected layers also. That is how I pass true value for the include top argument. So then if you want more, you can check the summary of this architecture. So what we are doing, so we are taking the entire input, entire VGG16 architecture. You observe all the convolution and all the fully connected layers along with the final dense layer also. Okay, so with all the 138 parameters. So with that, you just created one object. That's all you did. So this object is nothing but one model. It's of type model. And now from this model, what I want is, I want to extract features from, so as I explained you earlier, so you can extract features from, so the better thing is the convolutional blocks, they are giving better representations. So better to extract features from fully connected layers. So from this fully connected layer or from this fully connected layer, you can extract. So in VGG16, if you observe, there are two fully connected layers. But the final layer is also a fully connected layer, but this is used for producing the what you call it as outputs, class labels, right? So you should not extract features from this layer. So either you better extract from this layer or from this layer. Okay. So now FC1 and FC2, you can make use of them and you can extract the features. And how to extract the features, we'll see that now. So you just create the model object, and model object, so it's part of your Keras applications. So we imported that at the beginning of this code itself. So from that model, you just pass. So what is the inputs to your model? So the inputs to your model is the VGG16.inputs, whatever the inputs you are passing to VGG16. So what is the input to your VGG16? So this one, right? So the first layer. So the same layer you are passing as input to the model you are going to create. So here you are going to create one more model. And what is the output? So at the end you are expecting your FC2 layer output as output. So here VGG16 is the object you created, and from that you get the layer, and which layer you want to get is FC2. So here if you observe, no, so this gives you the name. So from here I got the name of the fully connected layer FC2, and that you need to pass here. So FC2 as a parameter to this get layer function of the VGG16. So and this will be the, so this should be the output for your model that you are going to create. So now just check the summary of this model, how it looks. So if you observe, no, so till the final fully connected layer, so the second fully connected layer, so you wanted the model, that means your final dense layer, the output layer is removed. Now the softmax layer is removed. Okay, so this is the model you have. And if you want fully connected one, you can change that also. So maybe I'll show you that. So FC1 layer. Now if you observe, so your model is up to FC1 alone. So like that you can create your model. So what should be the output, the final output layer. So now my model is ready. So first I'll show you how to extract features from one image, so that it will be easy for you to understand how to extract from multiple images. Okay. So now I have taken one of the image from the test images that we have seen earlier, or I think this is from the Pepper dataset image. So I have taken one of the images. Okay. So then this is the image path. So now, so you had to load the image first before you pass it to the model. So this is the model you created. So the model you created is this one. So to the model you need to pass the image, and then the model has to return the number of features. So how many features it has to return? It's 4096. So the very reason is your final fully connected layer of your VGG16 is 4096. So that is how we are going to extract features from the final layer. So here in this case, you are loading the image, and then you are converting your image to array. Okay. So yesterday I explained you clearly. So why do we need to do all these things? Then you expand the dimensions of this image, and then you apply pre-processing on that image, then call model.predict. So this is all you know from yesterday's session. So now when you call this model.predict, what happens is you are passing your image as input to this model. Okay. And then after applying the prediction of the model will produce the output as features. So now let's run it and see. Yeah. So the features are available for this image. So that was the image, and features are available, and I just want to show you the features. How many features should be there? For one image, because it's one image, the first dimension is 1. And how many features are there? 4096. So that is how it is returning 4096 features. And now this can be extended for multiple images also. So you can extract features from multiple images. See, so however we did know yesterday. So we basically extracted raw pixel values from the images that are available in different folders. The same technique I'm applying, except that instead of taking the IMRead, I'll be using model.predict. And of course, all these are required before applying the model.predict. You need to load the image from the image path, then you need to convert that to array, then you need to expand the dimensions, then you need to apply pre-processing input. So before you apply to VGG16, and then you had to call the model.predict method. So now that is done. Then you one by one you are getting, for each image you are getting the features, right? So you need to append that to a list variable. So I am basically yesterday whatever we did is exactly the same. So now you take the list variable and add the features one after the other. And similarly the labels also, however we did yesterday. So now I have the labels and I have the features. So features is the variable which is a list. Now I need to convert that to NumPy array. Then only I can pass that to my what you call the model, some other machine learning model. So that is why I'm converting that to NumPy arrays. And then of course, so every time I need not to run this model, right? So I need not to run the feature extraction stage. So that is why you can save them, save X value and Y value in your drive or in some folder. So for that, I just created the code. So you can make use of that. So that later on, I can load the values from that and I can make use of that. So now here, this code helps you to load. So without executing that, you can simply run this by loading your NumPy files. So your plant leaf disease features are available in this file, NumPy file, and your labels are available in this file. And that I'm copying to X and Y. So now it is done, right? So now what I'm doing is now the features are available. So now I'll show you what is the dimensionality of your features. So feature dimensionality, can you guess? There are 500 images and 4096 are the features for each image. So that is how your features is 500 by 4096. And similarly, you will be getting labels also. The Y value will be containing labels. You just check that out. And then I'm going to apply a simple machine learning model, that is logistic regression. So which every one of you are familiar with. So now before applying any machine learning model, I need to divide the data into train and test splits. So here I am dividing the data into train test splits, and so that I get the data into train and test partitions. So once I have done that, so I am creating the logistic regression model and creating the importing. Here I am importing the logistic regression class, and then I am creating the object, and then here I am fitting the logistic regression on the training data. So once the fitting is done, so I am going to apply that on test. Now can you see I got 96% accuracy. I didn't do anything, just extracted the features, no training of, no need to use the complex model and all, simple logistic regression, that's all. That itself gave me 96% accuracy. So that is how the deep features can be extracted and can be passed to other machine learning models. If you want, instead of using this logistic regression, you can create your own, the deep neural network also. So in the first workshop notes, so I have explained you how to create your deep neural network. So if you want, you can try that also. So without passing any parameters, the simple default values itself gave me 96%. So you can try it out. So it might improve. Yeah, with that note, so I'm done with the session. So maybe I can take one or two questions if you have any. Yeah, it's really involved. So you need to practice a lot to understand this. No questions? Hello?
Madam?
Yeah, sir, please please. Hello? Yeah. So what? Yes, ma'am. Sir Ramesh, sir.
Ma'am,
Yes.
can you please explain again what max pooling layer actually does?
Max pooling. Max
Yeah.
pooling, what it is doing is just, it is taking the input data and it is just doing kind of, so if your input data is 14 by 14, your output data will be 7 by 7. That's all.
Okay, it is reducing.
Yeah, it's reducing. It's kind of, removing the redundancy, ma'am. That's all it's doing. Nothing else. Maybe I should have that PPT. It's not here, right? I think it's day one's PPT. Yes, ma'am. So here you can see what it is doing. So here this is the input data. So you can consider this as input data to the max pooling layer. It's basically 4x4 data. So now, so if you apply max pooling, then so like your input data will be divided into windows, like however we are doing the convolution operation. So here the window size I am taking is 2x2 and the stride value I am taking as 2. Okay, because we usually apply non-overlapping max pooling. So from this 2x2 window, I am selecting, basically if you observe, no, 6, 6, 4, 5, that forms one window. So from that you are getting the maximum value, and that maximum value is 6. So in max pooling I get 6. If it is average pooling, so from the same window, instead of taking the max value, I take the average. So in the sum pooling, I take the sum value. So on and so forth. That's all. So if you observe, the output is exactly half of the input size because of the non-overlapping stride. Did I answer your question, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, fine.
Got it.
Yeah. So now, any other doubts?
Madam, that the recently that explained program means we have used VGG model and apply logistic regression application.
Yeah, of course. So you can you are basically extracting features from the VGG 65. You are using VGG to extract the features. For the regular machine learning models, no, however we did, like extracting the hog features, histogram features, or GIST features, or LVP features, so on and so forth, right? So we are very well aware of all those things.
In this case, we need to definitely convert from the image to .csv file or .xls file.
No need, directly you have the images only. So I am passing images only, right?
But you convert it into array, na madam? That
yeah, NumPy array. Yes, sir. NumPy array. Yes, yes. Yes, sir. Because this you need to do. Just convert that to a NumPy array. Because the models expect, so you, while processing the data, for the convenience, I just created it as a list. But list cannot be passed to the machine learning models. Machine learning models expect only NumPy arrays.
NumPy array, madam.
Or data frames also fine. So here I just converted that to NumPy files. That's all. Yeah, basically, no, you should have strong understanding of Python programming. So
I have already with having array NumPy file of features and levels. Can I directly give X and Y directly instead of image input and everything?
Yes, sir. Yes, yes, you can give. You can.
Okay.
No, okay, sir.
Now, kindly share the code, madam.
Yeah, sure. No, I hope everything is clear to all of you.
Excuse ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, now we have extracted the features from the image, right?
Yes.
Can this be taken forward for retrieval of images, ma'am?
Retrieval means you are not retrieving, right? So you are basically getting the features. The images are processed now.
No, ma'am. Actually, we have we are taking the features of the images that has been stored in the database,
Yes.
right? That's it, right? Suppose assume that I'm using a concept of retrieving of images. I give a query image and I want to perform a retrieval of that.
Okay.
For that case, can I use this concept over there for doing the job?
Ma'am, basically retrieval of the image, you can convert that to classification only, right?
Yeah, I can convert.
It can be posed as a classification problem, retrieval image. Because so maybe you can deal it in different ways. So one is kind of, you just get the similarities, so like which are close to that image, you retrieve them. That is one way to deal with that. Yeah. Or otherwise, what you can do is you can so like pass the image and get the class, and you just retrieve the images from that class. That is also possible.
Okay, classify it out and.
Yes.
No. What
you are basically kind of posing your retrieval image retrieval problem as a classification problem. That can be done. Okay, ma'am, is it fine? Yeah, now I hand over the session to the Cognitron people. So thank you all the participants for joining this workshop. So you patiently, so like, I am very sure that this is a really difficult, involved topic because it's not the basic deep neural network, no? It's kind of advanced course. So it's really difficult to understand and follow the things. That too, 3 days, it means it's really short. So kind of you try to practice them, so then definitely you will be able to understand. So thank you all. Thank you for participating in the workshop. So over to Sharif.
Good evening, everyone. Myself, Sheikh Nakur Sharif, a part of Cognitron Academy. First of all, I would like to thank each and every participant of this workshop, without whom this workshop wouldn't be this successful. You have taken your valuable time and you have attended this session. I hope these live sessions will help you to reach your research targets and you will reach your degrees very soon. I must thank our resource person, Mrs. Josna Devi Bodapati, for giving such wonderful lectures and hands-on sessions. Even moreover, she has clarified all of your doubts in a detailed manner. So I would also like to thank Dr. N. Veeranjanelu, Director of Cognitron Academy, for organizing this workshop. I think this workshop is a grand success, and also the people who made this success are you, and we expect the same thing from you in our upcoming workshops also. Actually, Cognitron Academy provides various types of services. It not only organizes workshops, but also it will organize faculty development programs, technical training for campus recruitments, and also helping the research community to develop the coding for their concepts. Means if you have the methodology with you, we are ready to provide code for you. Means we will provide coding background for you. Not only that, in case of campus recruitment, our resource person, Ms. Josna Devi Bodapati, has trained numerous students in the field of programming skills, and also she thought about data structures and design and analysis of algorithms. Because of her, many people got placement in famous MNCs with a good package. I would say this will be very much benefit to all the students who attend the sessions on programming skills and also the data structures and algorithms that were taught by Josna Devi Bodapati in future. Like we are organizing several workshops in future also, like it will be starting with Python programming followed by Python for data science, and next we'll be organizing about machine learning applications and ensembling techniques, data augmentation techniques, big data analytics, cloud computing, database management systems, industry 4.0, etc., etc. So I expect the same thing from the participant in future also. And I would like to mention one more point about Cognitron Academy. It doesn't organize, it not only organizes this kind of workshops, but also provide mentorship to those who are having willingness to present their skills to the students and those who want to help the research community. And we welcome all those participants, and they can mentor, they can be given the mentorship in the Cognitron Academy. That's it. With this, I would like to conclude. And once again, I would like to thank each and every participant for attending the session. And it would be very helpful if any one of the participants would share their feedback and give their valuable suggestions. If anyone want to share their feedback or the suggestions to Cognitron Academy, it's open to the participants. You can share your feedback now. Anyone want to share your feedback? So yesterday you have done with your assessment and feedback. Most probably tomorrow we will be issuing your certificates along with the scores. Okay. Okay, once again, thank you each and everyone. Shall I close the session, or anyone want to share your feedback or any kind of doubts that you want to ask? Okay. Okay, thank you everyone. I'm closing the session now.